Welcome, dear listeners, to another journey into the timeless world of Greek mythology, where gods and mortals meet in stories that echo through centuries. Tonight, we open a tale that begins not with triumph, but with a prophecy whispered in fear, shaping the fate of kings, daughters, and the child who would change history. It is the story of Danae, a princess hidden away, and Zeus, king of the gods, who chose to descend not as storm or thunder, but as a gentle, mysterious golden rain. Before Perseus became a hero, before he faced monsters and carved his name into legend, there was a king haunted by fate and a daughter trapped in silence. This tale is not about battles or blood, but about secrecy, longing, and the spark of destiny, the light that found its way into the deepest shadows of confinement. It is a story of how a single drop of wonder could alter the course of time, and how hope can be born in the most unexpected and fragile of places. So, close your eyes if you wish, and imagine bronze walls, golden light, and the heartbeat of a child destined to become a hero of Greece. This is the story of Zeus and Danae. Long ago, in the ancient city of Argos, there lived a king named Acrisius, proud and strong. Yet burdened by one sorrow, he had no son to continue his line. In those times, a king's true legacy was not only measured by walls or temples, but by heirs who could guard his throne and secure his name for generations to come. Though Acrisius had a daughter, Danae, radiant and graceful, he saw in her only beauty, not the hope of a ruler who could defend his kingdom after him. Bitterness grew heavier with each year, and at last, Acrisius journeyed to Delphi, where Apollo's oracle spoke truth, sharp as iron and never wrong. Amid the smoke of incense, the priestess heard his plea. "Will I ever have a son? Will Argos remain safe within my bloodline and my reign?" Her answer chilled the king's soul. "No son shall be born to you, yet your daughter shall bear a child, and that child shall one day bring about your end." The words echoed like thunder in his mind, heavier than any sword he had faced. For how could a father's ruin come from his daughter's innocent child? Back in Argos, Acrisius looked upon Danae differently, no longer only a daughter, but a vessel of danger. A doorway through which fate might slip inside his palace. Killing her would mean wrath from the gods, yet to leave her free meant risking the prophecy. Fear twisted him, leaving only one desperate path. Acrisius ordered a chamber built. Some say a bronze tower, others say a hidden underground cell, but both sealed her away from the outside world. Inside, Danae lived cut off from light and sky. The sun could barely touch her, the wind could not kiss her face, and her laughter grew rare and fragile. The people of Argos whispered quietly. Why was the princess unseen? Why was she never at festivals? Yet none dared question their fearful king. Acrisius believed he had outsmarted the gods. He believed fate was locked behind bronze walls, safe from destiny's cruel hand. But destiny, like water, always finds a way. And within that chamber of silence, the story of Perseus was quietly waiting to begin. The prophecy weighed on Acrisius like an invisible chain, haunting his steps through the palace and turning every glance toward Danae into a reminder of his doom. Danae was gentle and innocent, unaware of the shadow cast upon her. Yet Acrisius no longer saw a daughter in her, only the thread of a prophecy waiting to unfold. He tried to reason with himself, to believe the oracle might be wrong, but deep down he knew oracles never lied, and fate could never be undone. So Acrisius clung to a single thought. If he could not end the prophecy, he would at least delay it, locking Danae away from the world forever. He ordered craftsmen to build a prison unlike any other. Some say a bronze tower gleaming in the sky. Others say a chamber buried deep beneath the earth. When the chamber was complete, Danae entered without resistance, though her heart trembled with confusion, for she could not understand her father's sudden fear. The heavy doors closed behind her, and she stood inside walls of bronze that glowed faintly with cold light, the air thick and lifeless around her. Only a narrow slit in the ceiling allowed the sun to peek through, and even then, its warmth was reduced to a pale, distant glow. At first, Danae tried to fill the silence with songs and lullabies, but as seasons passed, her voice grew softer and her spirit faded into quiet sorrow. Outside, whispers spread among the people of Argos, who wondered why their princess had vanished, yet none dared question their king's fearful command. Acrisius told himself he had outwitted fate, locking away the danger, yet every step past the chamber reminded him that prophecy still lived in his mind. He knew that fate could not be stopped by bronze or stone, and though the tower stood strong, fear lingered like smoke slipping through unseen cracks. From Olympus, Zeus looked down and saw Danae's golden hair glowing faintly in the dim light, her loneliness stirring something deep within him. He had taken many forms before, yet never had he seen a mortal hidden so carefully, so sorrowful, and yet so radiant in her silent prison. The bronze chamber meant to be Danae's cage would soon become the stage of a miracle, for destiny was already moving, quiet as falling rain. And in that place of shadows, Danae's story was only beginning. The prophecy weighed on Acrisius like an invisible chain, haunting his steps through the palace and turning every glance toward Danae into a reminder of his doom. Danae was gentle and innocent, unaware of the shadow cast upon her. Yet Acrisius no longer saw a daughter in her, only the threat of a prophecy waiting to unfold. He tried to reason with himself, to believe the oracle might be wrong. But deep down he knew oracles never lied, and fate could never be undone. So Acrisius clung to a single thought. If he could not end the prophecy, he would at least delay it, locking Danae away from the world forever. He ordered craftsmen to build a prison unlike any other. Some say a bronze tower gleaming in the sky. Others say a chamber buried deep beneath the earth. When the chamber was complete, Danae entered without resistance, though her heart trembled with confusion, for she could not understand her father's sudden fear. The heavy doors closed behind her, and she stood inside walls of bronze that glowed faintly with cold light, the air thick and lifeless around her. Only a narrow slit in the ceiling allowed the sun to peek through, and even then, its warmth was reduced to a pale, distant glow. At first, Danae tried to fill the silence with songs and lullabies, but as seasons passed, her voice grew softer and her spirit faded into quiet sorrow. Outside, whispers spread among the people of Argos, who wondered why their princess had vanished. Yet none dared question their king's fearful command. Acrisius told himself he had outwitted fate, locking away the danger. Yet every step past the chamber reminded him that prophecy still lived in his mind. He knew that fate could not be stopped by bronze or stone. And though the tower stood strong, fear lingered like smoke slipping through unseen cracks. From Olympus, Zeus looked down and saw Danae's golden hair glowing faintly in the dim light, her loneliness stirring something deep within him. He had taken many forms before, yet never had he seen a mortal hidden so carefully, so sorrowful, and yet so radiant in her silent prison. The bronze chamber, meant to be Danae's cage, would soon become the stage of a miracle, for destiny was already moving, quiet as falling rain. And in that place of shadows, Danae's story was only beginning. Night fell over Argos, and the bronze chamber gleamed faintly under the quiet silver moonlight. Inside, Danae sat beneath the narrow slit, staring at the sky, her heart torn between hope and despair. She whispered softly to herself, wondering if the gods had long forgotten her name and her prayers. But on Olympus, Zeus had watched her, moved by her sorrow, her strength, and her quiet beauty. No mortal wall, no king's command could keep him from reaching the one fate had chosen. That night, a soft radiance gathered in the sky, shimmering like mist woven with golden light. The globe brightened, sparkling as if the heavens themselves were spilling sunlight into the night. Golden droplets descended silently, slipping through the narrow opening into the bronze chamber below. They glimmered as they fell, scattering light across the walls, turning the prison into a temple of stars. Danae gasped, rising to her feet, eyes wide as warmth spread gently through the heavy air. The rain was not water, but divine light, each droplet carrying whispers of eternity and life. She lifted her hands, catching the golden drops, feeling them sink into her skin like fire. Loneliness melted into awe as she stood bathed in light, her prison transformed into a sanctuary. The rain swirled around her, a dance of brilliance, as if the stars themselves had descended. She closed her eyes, surrendering to the touch of divinity, her heart opening without fear. Zeus had come not as thunder or flame, but as light, radiant, gentle, and full of promise. The chamber glowed, bronze walls alive with shimmer, while Danae embraced the miracle within. Her prayers had been answered, her solitude ended, and fate's unseen hand began to turn the page. Outside, Argo slept in silence, unaware of the wonder unfolding beneath its quiet skies. From that night's golden rain would rise a story of destiny, love, and a hero yet unborn. And though Danae did not know it yet, the light had planted the seed of Perseus. Morning light spread over Argos, but inside the bronze chamber, Danae awoke to something far greater. A new rhythm stirred within her, soft yet powerful, like a hidden spark deep in her soul. At first, she thought it a dream, but her hand on her stomach told her it was real. The golden rain had left her with more than wonder, it had left her with the promise of life. Her heart trembled between awe and fear, unsure how to explain a miracle born of divine light. Yet joy rose within her, steady and bright, like sunlight breaking through heavy storm clouds. Loneliness faded with each heartbeat she felt, each whisper of life growing inside her. She spoke softly to her unborn child, telling him of skies, gardens, and freedoms he would see. The chamber that once felt like a prison now became a cradle filled with hidden wonder. Her songs no longer mourned sorrow, but carried hope upward through the narrow slit to the heavens. Beyond the walls, Acrisius believed her locked away, safe from the prophecy that haunted him. But destiny does not bow to fear, and the seed of Perseus was already stirring within her. The gods on Olympus whispered of the future, knowing greatness often rises from hardship and sorrow. Zeus had set fate in motion, and even he would not turn back what had begun. Danae dreamed of her child, imagining his laughter, his strength, and the promise of his life. She did not know he would face monsters and kings, only that he would be extraordinary. The bronze walls still stood, cold and unyielding. Yet inside them bloomed a secret too great to silence. At night, she whispered lullabies, promising her child love, comfort, and protection no matter the cost. The winds outside carried omens, the earth itself aware of the life stirring in bronze shadows. Acrisius could not hear it, but fate's rhythm was growing louder with every passing day. He had hidden her to prevent prophecy, yet in hiding, he had ensured its fulfillment. The child was her comfort, her strength, and the living answer to the oracle's words. Perseus, born of light and hope, was already shaping the world that awaited his name. And so, within bronze walls meant to hold despair, life bloomed, silent, yet unstoppable. What Acrisius feared most was alive, not in sorrow or chains, but in the heartbeat of a child. The months inside the bronze chamber passed slowly, each day marked by both hardship and quiet joy for Danae. Her body changed with time, her spirit grew stronger, and within her womb a new life blossomed. She no longer sang to ease her loneliness, but to comfort her unborn child with songs of love and hope. Her prison was no longer only a cage, but a sanctuary made sacred by the life she carried within. Outside, the world knew nothing of her secret, only that their princess had vanished by the king's decree. Rumors swirled across Argos, but no whisper of truth escaped the cold bronze walls of her chamber. Yet fate, no matter how deeply buried, cannot remain hidden forever under fear and secrecy. One morning, as a servant entered with food, his eyes fell on Danae and widened in shock. Though she tried to conceal herself, her form revealed what words could not. She carried a child. The servant fled in fear, rushing to Acrisius with trembling lips to deliver the terrible news. When the king heard, his heart froze, his breath caught, and terror struck deep into his chest. The words of the oracle returned. Like thunder, his grandson would be the cause of his ruin. He stormed into the chamber, the bronze doors opening to reveal Danae, radiant and unyielding. No longer only his daughter, she stood as a mother-to-be, a vessel of divine will. "Whose child is this?" Acrisius demanded, his voice trembling with fury and hidden dread. Danae, though afraid, raised her head proudly and spoke the truth without hesitation. "The child is not of man," she declared. "He is the gift of Zeus, king of the gods." Her words struck Acrisius like lightning, for he feared the gods, yet feared his fate even more. He staggered back, torn between reverence for Olympus and dread of the prophecy's promise. He could not slay his daughter, nor dare to raise a hand against the unborn child. To do so would invite divine wrath far greater than any mortal doom. But still, the prophecy's shadow haunted him, whispering of downfall and death in his dreams. Night after night, he saw visions of a grown boy rising to bring his ruin. Every echo of the oracle's voice drove him deeper into sleepless terror and restless despair. Through the palace halls he wandered, searching for a way to escape what destiny decreed. He thought of exile, of chains, even of death, yet no plan seemed safe enough. Every scheme felt like rebellion against the will of Olympus. And still his fear grew. But fear is a cunning master, whispering that even folly is better than stillness. At last, he resolved to act, to cast out mother and child before fate could strike. In the bronze chamber, Danae sat quietly, her hands resting tenderly upon her growing belly. She dreamed of her son's future, whispering hopes into the silence that wrapped her in peace. She did not know the weight of her father's fear or the storm he was preparing. The gods, watching from Olympus, saw Acrisius blinded by terror, unable to grasp the truth. For destiny cannot be outwitted, no matter the walls built or seas crossed in fear. And yet Acrisius, desperate and trembling, wove a plan that would set fate into motion. Danae and her child, innocent and chosen, would soon be cast into the vast unknown. Thus the stage was set for exile, for peril, and for the rise of a hero unborn. The decision weighed heavy on Acrisius, though he cloaked it in duty and silence, fearing both men and gods. He could not kill Danae or her child, for divine wrath would fall swiftly upon his mortal head. Yet he could not keep them in Argos, where whispers might rise and prophecy grow dangerous with time. So he turned to the sea, vast and merciless, a last refuge from fate's unyielding promise of ruin. A chest was built, not a coffin of sorrow, but a vessel of exile shaped from oak and iron. When finished, it stood plain and sturdy, without adornment, strong enough to meet the waves ahead. Danae came, holding her newborn son, swaddled and soft, his cries faint like whispers of destiny. She whispered his name Perseus, a prayer and promise that he would live beyond sorrow and shadow. Acrisius did not gaze long upon the child, for to look was to face prophecy's weight. The chest was lined with straw, stocked with bread, water, and what little comfort fear could allow. Danae stepped inside, cradling Perseus, her eyes lifted toward the sky, seeking courage in the heavens. The chest was sealed, and she whispered, "Zeus protector, hear me. Guide us through this trial." Carried to the shore, the chest moved through silent streets, where eyes filled with pity watched. No one dared speak against the king, yet mothers wept quietly, holding children closer in trembling arms. At the shore, waves curled and foamed, as if Poseidon himself had come to witness the act. The chest was pushed into the sea, rocking gently before the tide carried it toward the horizon. Danae held Perseus close, her lips against his brow, her heart beating steady with fierce devotion. The sea sang around them, each wave both lullaby and challenge, a rhythm of fate and trial. Above, the gods looked on. Zeus stirred, Athena watched with care. Poseidon allowed the waves to guide. Night fell, and stars stretched wide across the sky, watching as the chest drifted into the unknown. Danae sang softly, her trembling voice filled with love, promising survival and future triumphs for her son. The chest rose and fell against storms, battered but unbroken, as if guided by unseen divine hands. Though cast out by fear, Danae believed with every heartbeat that she and Perseus were not abandoned. The sea, vast and endless, does not only destroy it, also delivers life into new beginnings. And so, across waves and darkness, the voyage began, the first chapter in the life of a hero. The chest drifted endlessly, rising and falling with the waves, carried by winds, storms, and unseen hands of fate. Danae clutched Perseus close, her whisper soothing, turning fear into comfort, her love stronger than iron chains. She told him of the earth, the sky, and the promise of freedom beyond the endless sea's embrace. At dawn, the chest reached the island of Seriphos, its green cliffs rising gently from the blue horizon. Fishermen spotted the strange chest drifting ashore and pulled it from the tide with cautious curiosity. When they opened it, they found Danae, weary but radiant, holding Perseus, asleep in her arms. A hush fell over them, for this was no ordinary sight but a gift touched by divine will. Among the fishermen was Dictys, a kind man, brother to Polydectes, king of Seriphos. While others feared divine anger, Dictys stepped forward, offering Danae his hand and his protection. With gratitude trembling in her heart, Danae accepted, whispering thanks to the unseen gods above. Dictys welcomed them to his modest home, warm with kindness, free from the shadows of Argos. Here, Danae could breathe, Perseus could grow, and hope replaced the prison of bronze walls. The islanders murmured, some believing in blessing, others fearing doom. Yet Dictys stood firmly beside them. He cared for mother and child, never asking questions, giving only shelter, loyalty, and peace. Danae's heart softened in safety, and Perseus found in Dictys a fatherly hand to guide him. Still, destiny whispered, for the gods watched, weaving threads that would shape Perseus's path. Zeus watched in silence. Athena's wisdom lingered in the air, guiding fate's steady hand. Danae often sat by the shore, holding Perseus, her eyes lost in the endless horizon. She knew peace was fragile, for prophecy always finds a way. Yet she savored each moment. Her voice no longer echoed in bronze walls, but sang freely, carried by the sea breeze. In Seriphos, Polydectes heard of the strangers from the sea, his heart stirring with hidden ambition. Yet under Dictys's protection, Danae and Perseus remained safe, untouched by the king's gaze. They had escaped Argos, survived the endless sea, and found refuge upon this humble island. Perseus, still a child, lived quietly, unaware that greatness was already written in his name. And so the boy, born from golden rain, held in love, began the journey shaped by fate. Time passed gently on Seriphos, where Perseus grew from a helpless infant into a curious child. Dictys raised him as his own, teaching him to cast nets, read the wind, and respect the sea. Danae, freed from her bronze prison, devoted herself to raising Perseus with quiet love and care. Yet fate never rests, and peace on Seriphos lived under the rule of King Polydectes. Unlike Dictys's kindness, Polydectes' heart was restless, always reaching for power, wealth, and desire. Whispers of Danae's beauty reached the king, painting her as mysterious, radiant, and untouchable. He imagined her story and longed to make her his own, his desire turning into resolve. But Danae had no wish to bind herself to another after suffering cruelty and confinement. When Polydectes offered her honeyed words and promises, she refused him with quiet firmness. Her rejection wounded his pride, though he masked his resentment behind a practiced, royal smile. To Polydectes, her refusal was not only personal but an insult to his throne. Though silent, he began to plot, his ambition shadowing both Danae and her growing son. Perseus, unaware of danger, grew strong, his eyes bright as the sea and his spirit eager. The islanders admired him, whispering that perhaps the gods had blessed this child of mystery. His presence, however, became a thorn in the king's side, a shield between him and Danae. Polydectes brooded, thinking that without the boy, the mother might finally surrender to him. Dark thoughts filled his palace, yet he acted with patience, waiting for the right moment. Like nets in the sea, his schemes were hidden, ready to tighten when Perseus swam too close. For now, Danae and Perseus lived in fragile peace under the quiet protection of Dictys. But Danae sensed danger in the king's gaze, praying to Zeus and Athena for safety. The waves of Seriphos crashed on the shore, steady reminders that fate could not be halted. Perseus, the child born of golden rain, was growing as shadows of destiny gathered around him. And in his stone halls, King Polydectes smiled, for he had begun to weave his plan. The years rolled on, and Perseus grew into a young man whose presence could no longer be ignored. He was strong, tall, and filled with the energy of youth. The islanders spoke of him with admiration, for he seemed blessed not only by the sea, but also by the gods themselves. His laughter carried across the shore, and his courage in small deeds hinted at greater things to come. Danae watched him with pride and fear intertwined. She knew he was destined for more than a quiet life by the sea. Every time she looked at him, she remembered the prophecy spoken long ago. Her son would bring Acrisius's downfall. Though far from Argos, the shadow of fate stretched even here, whispering that destiny could not be escaped. Polydectes, meanwhile, grew more restless with each passing year. Danae had refused him time and again, her devotion fixed on her son. Her rejection festered in his pride, and Perseus's growing strength made the wound even deeper. The king began to see Perseus not only as an obstacle, but also as a threat. But Polydectes was cunning. He knew that to strike openly against Perseus would stir anger among the people and invite the gods' wrath. Instead, he sought a subtler path, one wrapped in the cloak of generosity. So he conceived a plan, a deception that would seem like a celebration but hide a cruel test. The king announced that he intended to wed Hippodamia, a princess of Thessaly. He called upon all the men of Seriphos to bring him gifts to honor the union: gold, silver, horses. Each man was to contribute according to his wealth. The island buzzed with excitement, for a royal wedding promised feasts, music, and glory. When word reached Perseus, he felt ashamed. He was young, poor, and had nothing to offer the king. Though he had grown into strength, he had no wealth to match the expectations of such an occasion. Polydectes, knowing this, feigned sympathy and pressed the matter with calculated kindness. "Bring me not horses or gold," the king told him with a smile, "but something rarer, something worthy of your spirit. If you are brave, Perseus, fetch for me the head of Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze turns men to stone." The hall fell silent. The challenge hung in the air like a storm about to break. Some gasped, others whispered in disbelief, for who would dare face the Gorgon and return alive? But Perseus, proud and unyielding, accepted the task without hesitation. He vowed to bring the king the head of Medusa, to prove himself no less than any man of Seriphos. His heart burned with youthful fire. Yet behind Polydectes' smile lurked triumph, for his trap was sprung. To send Perseus after Medusa was to send him to certain death, clearing the path to Danae at last. Danae's heart broke when she heard her son's vow. She tried to dissuade him, begging him not to risk his life against such a monster. But Perseus, firm in his promise, reassured her with courage he did not yet know he possessed. "Mother," he said, "I was not born to hide in the shadows. If the gods favor me, I will return." That night, as the sea murmured against the shore, Perseus stood beneath the stars. The weight of his vow pressed on him, yet he felt the stirrings of destiny in his chest. He did not know that the gods themselves watched him closely: Athena with her wisdom, Hermes with his swiftness, Zeus with his hidden pride. The boy born of golden rain had stepped onto the path of legend, and so the stage was set. Polydectes believed his scheme flawless. Danae prayed with trembling hands, and Perseus prepared for a journey that would echo through eternity. The hunt for Medusa had begun.